Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. Let's problem the solve, and we are going to discuss today about variables, data types, and loops. So firstly, let's start with variable and data types. What is a variable? Variable is a space inside the memory where you will save your data. So you can similar way understand it in your real life that you might have storage units in your home like a cupboard or an almirah where you are keeping your clothes inside. So that cupboard or almirah is actually a variable. Inside that cupboard, you might be, keeping your clothes and everything. That is data. Now, what type of clothes you are keeping, that is cloth type. And when we talk about in programming languages, what type of data are you saving, that is data types. In cloth type, you can say that I have a morning cloth, evening cloth, party clothes, and every other kind of clothes. Similar in here, we have data types like integer, float, string, long, double, and there are like classes, dict, list, and everything else that we'll talk in future lectures. But for now, let's focus understanding the definition behind this variable and how to declare a particular variable. So if you in Python, it is quite easy. You just have to go away and say like, okay, a equals to 5, b equals to c. So here, when we talk about variable, it is actually a and B is variable, 5 and 6 is data. So when we talk about A is a memory inside your RAM, you can say, or hard disk, which reference to a particular memory space. And at that memory space, 5 or 6 is saved. So when we say print A, what happens that our computer actually goes to that space and then find that particular space and extract the variable and show us. So that is what it does. Now let's move towards loops. Uh, In order to understand the loop, let's create new cells. Okay, so there are two types of loop, for loop and while loop. Why we need a loop? To do all kind of repetitive task in a cleaner way. For summation, suppose you have to sum from 1 to 10, all the numbers that are there in between 1 to 10. One way to do it is like saying sum equals to 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. That's actually a one way, but it is quite tiring for us writing out. If it is summing up to 10 only, that's fine. That someone asks us to sum up to 100,000, writing in this fashion will take the whole day at all. So there is a better way to do that. So let's talk about loop. In loop, there are three things that we need. First is a start. Second is a stop, means condition, and third is a step. A step can be increment or decrement. Increment by using plus operator, minus operator, multiplication. Decrement by using minus operator or like division or anything else. So that three conditions you need, then you have to think about loops. If you have to run from a start to finish and you have to take, in between steps, then loop is the thing that you need. In case of there are two different loops, there is a two different use cases for those two loops. So suppose in for loop, if you know the start condition and a step, and your step is not changing in between your iteration, then we should use for loop. So for loop is like for I in range, I will say, we can see that 1 to 10 we have to, like, say 1 to 10, I have to sum all of them. And in order to do a summation, I will initialize a variable sum equals to 0. And here, what I will do, that I'll say sum equals to sum plus I. Now, what is happening here, that in range, it actually gives us one number at a time to us. So it initialization, so there are three different things, functions here. First is initialization, that is a start. This is a stop condition, that number should be lesser than 10. And there is a third step that we are actually not, by default it is 1, and we are actually taking 1 only, so that's why I didn't add it. This third step is actually a step, what number of increment you have to do on each iteration, that is a step. So I'm saying 1, you can say 2, 3, or like multiplied by 2 or something else also, that will work. So I'll say here sum equals to sum plus 1, and now let's print our each step so that we can understand our functions or loops better. So I'll say that, okay, so it is for loop, and current number, for loop current number is, I'll say current number is I, and sum is sum. Okay, so this will give us understanding about how for loop is working, and it will actually run. So let's run this particular cell. So this is actually an interactive way to learn, or work on Python. We are using cell-wise, so we don't have to run anything, and we can see our output side by side and in a cleaner way. There is other way that we saw in our first tutorial where we used to start a terminal, write Python, and that's what it used to do. So here we can see that we started sum equals to 0. Okay, this needs a Python kernel package. Okay, we'll give that to them. So one of the benefit of Visual Studio Code, that it understand the requirements of ours and then suddenly suggest us that what we need. And whenever it suggests, go and read it, like, okay, it needed a IPy kernel to run a particular interactive session, then it will install it. You just give it install, and it will install this IPy kernel for you. So in order to create a new shell, you always start with hash and then two percentage mark. So as we can see that I started with for loop as by saying hash percentage mark percentage mark. Let's create another cell. This you can see I have, if you write hash percentage percentage, you have created another cell. And let's talk about while loop, or while it is installing IPy kernel. So in while loop also we need three things: start, condition, and then step. But here step can be varied between the you can change the step in between of your loop, also in between of your iteration also. That's why while loop is quite useful, where your step is not constant at every moment. Here we said that a step is constant, one by one you have to increment at each step. But here we'll say something else, like here we are just describing, firstly we'll initialize I equals to 0, and then we are saying while I is smaller than 10. So we provided the stop. Stop is nothing but a condition that says that whenever you reach uh, 10, you have to stop it. And then we will do sum equals to sum plus I. Now we will do the print again. We'll just print while loop. Current number is this, summation is this. This will actually give us a clear understanding where we are. So now you can see that here we have summation, here we have condition, but we have yet to decide what step we have to take in our next iteration. So for simplicity, let's start with I equals to I plus 1. But the usage of while is there when you have a variable, a step function during your iteration. You have to change the step based on the previous iteration, then you use while loop. If your step is constant during the whole iteration, you used for loop. Now I think our IPy kernel is installing. installed, and it is connecting to Python 3.11.5. Now let's run this one. So now you can see that it ran for loop, and in each iteration it is showing first is current number is 1, sum is 1, current number is 2, sum is 2, and similarly it is going forward 1 plus 1 is 2, or 2 plus 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 3 is 6. In similar fashion, it is going forward, and it is showing you. Okay. So in for loop, you can see, okay, it is showing sum plus 1. That's why I was thinking why there is an increment of 1 in each one. So now I have made it like sum equals to sum plus 1. Let's run this particular cell one more time. I'll click on this run cell, and now we'll see 1 starting with 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. That is 2 plus 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. And similarly, it is going forward. Okay. And there is second portion, that is while loop. We can see in while loop, it is starting with I equals to 0, I is smaller than 10, and then there is like sum we are doing, and we have a step function. Let's see while function. So I'll say run cell in while. The functionality here, you are seeing that they both are same, but the change will happen when you have a different step function in each iteration that we can actually do. So I'll say sum equals to 0. Suppose I want to change the step function here. So if I am saying uh, sum is greater than 5, then what you have to do, that you should I equals to I plus 2, else it should be I equals to I plus 1. So here we are changing the step function. So firstly, what we'll do, that from starting from 1 to 4, 1 to 5, it will actually increment by 1. Then after 5, it will increment by 2, and forward. So now let's see the answer of this one. So now you can see it decreases the number of iteration it was taking. For first 3, you can see that it started 0, 1, 2, 3. And beyond 3, it suddenly started incrementing by 2, 3 to 5, 5 to 7, 7 to 9. So this is the difference between for loop and while loop. When in for loop, there is a step which is constant during the whole iteration, while in case of while loop, you can modify your step function during the iteration also. So that's how you choose what loop to use in your program. Okay, folks, that's it from my side. Let's meet in our next lecture to talk about more about data structure in Python. Thank you. Have a nice day.